All right, music fans, welcome back to the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you and me. So I have this idea. I saw Chicago last week, and they were phenomenal, outstanding. But I'm one of those guys who grew up in the 1980s. And yeah, they did some 80s stuff, but I kind of miss the sound that the band had during the 80s and early 90s, and even into the mid-90s a little bit, and I'll explain all that. I think what's odd now are there so many people that are outside the band that used to be in the band that could form a band. And I thought about this the other day. I've been hard. I was kind of hard on Jason Scheff prior to when he left Chicago, because there was so much of a gap between his announcement and then finally when Jeff took over. Jason is the guy I went to see in 1986 with this new Chicago without Peter Cetera 31 years ago. I was at the concert last week, and I more or less said it's been 31 years, and people were like, wow, and some of those other people were there and they hadn't seen him since the 1970s, so I was kind of like I was in a different category. But I miss the 80s version of Chicago, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 21. Those albums to me were like the core of my Chicago existence. And I think there's enough material on those albums, plus, a tune like Here in My Heart, which came out later on a Greatest Hits compilation, a great song that Bill and Jason sang. I've had my issues with Bill Champlin as well, as far as when he left the band, he seemed like he was kind of putting the whole thing down. I think he spent, 28 years or something like that in Chicago. And I get it, burnout and so forth, and just playing the same tunes every night. But I've noticed that Bill is out with the Rock Pack now performing, and I think he still has the fire in him. He still wants to perform, and I've noticed too that he's performing songs now the way the song was recorded. I watched him play a concert with Joseph Williams from Toto, and this guy Peter Freitstedt, I believe is how you say his name. He's a guy from Sweden, and they have kind of like this little all-star band thing that they do. And the material was phenomenal. It's the kind of music that I'm really gravitating toward, because I'm getting old and I don't want to be blasted every time I get into the car or put headphones on. I want to be able to hear the instruments. You might say I'm becoming more West Coast in my tastes as time goes on. So here's my idea. Here are the guys that are outside Chicago right now that could reform a band that could play Chicago music. Danny Seraphine is the guy who actually has a band called California Transit Authority. He's the drummer who left Chicago right around 1989, 1990. He was kind of a leader in the band. If you watch his speech at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he's so jacked up because he gets to play with Chicago. It wasn't his choice to leave the band. He was having some issues with technology at the time. Same thing with Steve Smith, who had issues with technology in the mid-'80s, and both guys were terminated. If you watch the Chicago documentary, it seems as Danny was kind of trying his best, and he just couldn't keep up with technology, but he still is just an amazing drummer. Tristan Bowden, the guy who replaced him, is a great drummer too. So again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just trying to tell you what happened. But he's got this thing out there called California Transit Authority, and he's done a couple of albums, and they're pretty good albums. The problem is the vocalists, to me, just don't do it for me. The music itself is excellent. Maybe if I spent more time with those albums, I might appreciate them more. But I haven't been. I'll hear them do like Hard Habit to Break or something, and I'll be like, yeah, no, this isn't working. But you've got Danny Seraphine, you've got Bill Champlin, you've got Jason Scheff, and you've got Dwayne Bailey. Okay, Dwayne Bailey, the guitar player who was in Chicago before Keith Howland. And if you don't like Dwayne, you've got Chris Pennick out there. I don't know if I think Donnie Dacus might not be on Earth anymore. Someone will have to get me that info, but I think Chris Pennick is, and I'm sure Dwayne Bailey is. So you've got great guitar players out there that could, you know, complement this imaginary band that I'm pontificating about. But you've got all this material you could play from Chicago 16 through Chicago 21. You could throw in a tune if you wanted to from Chicago 30 if you wanted. You could play Here in My Heart from the Greatest Hits compilation. You could delve into anything that Bill has recorded. It'd be really, really cool to hear a band like this with Danny Seraphine playing drums, Jason Scheff playing bass and singing, Bill Champlin singing, playing rhythm guitar or keyboards, and then you've got a lead guitar player in Dwayne or Chris. To me, you've got the makings of a really good band that could perform, say, all of these left out tunes like Explain It to My Heart or Will You Still Love Me, or any of the songs that Bill and Jason were on together, whether that be from Chicago 18 or from 19, any of that stuff, and Bill could sing all of his big hits off of 19. I think it would be a really cool experience. Look, Bill's out there with the Rock Pack, so he still has fire in the belly to perform and get out there and get his songs out there. I mean, look, he's playing Look Away all the time when he's out there. I know when he left, I think he was tired of playing the same old tunes every night, but when your bread and butter is a huge hit from 1989, it was the #1 song from 1989. Diane Warren wrote the song, and she was kind of a hot commodity songwriter at the time. And he's still performing the song. In fact, Chicago did it when I saw them with Lou Pardini on vocals. So it's a big song, but there's so much more from those albums that I think would be really cool for fans like me who really cut their teeth on the 1980s version of Chicago. And my apologies to Robert Lamb. Robert really didn't have any hits with the band in the 1980s. So I'm not saying you don't need a Robert Lamb character in the band, but you don't. If you want to hear this style of music, you're going to love just hearing Bill and Jason together again. I don't know what's up with Jason. He's really taken a low profile since leaving the band, and I don't know if he'd be up for something like this. But Jason, I apologize for those videos where I was getting on your case about taking your sweet time leaving the band and so forth. You know, it was just me wanting something to happen, and I'm glad because Jeff is a great singer and he's in the right place and he's really jazzed about being in the band. So let me just say this. I think it would be a cool kind of offshoots, almost like a super group, to have Bill, Jason, Danny, and Dwayne in a band again, and I think it would take off. I think you guys would pack out at least small venues, and I'd go see you. Actually, I'd want, you know, backstage passes because I'm the guy who's instigating it all. So just sort of half kidding there. Who knows if this would ever happen, but it's an idea. I am the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people. We'll be back real soon with more real music talk. Stay tuned. Talk to you then.